Welcome back. Just a quick little reminder, Creepy Cascadia is an adult podcast, so we deal with explicit themes, adult language, and extremely immature senses of humor. So please use caution when listening. Also, because this case is pretty big with lots of details, we're actually breaking it up into 2 parts. So you're going to get part 1 today, and then we're going to release part 2 on Monday as a bonus episode. So you will get 2 episodes next week. We're very excited. We have almost 100 downloads of our very first episode that we aired last week, so we're super excited about that.
Yeah, century mark. Thanks for all the downloads.
Yeah.
Hope we get some return listeners here.
Yeah, keep on listening, keep on sharing us, rating, reviewing. I'm going to say it probably a million times till I'm blue in the face, but hey, that's what we do. Yeah. Sometimes you got to sell yourself, and since I'm not hot enough to be an escort, I got to do it this way. I was gonna say strip, but definitely not stripper material either.
I feel like, I don't know.
There's a market for everybody.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was going.
I mean, I did land you, so.
It's like, pretty sure prostitution is the oldest profession in the world, or second oldest, one of those two, right?
Yeah.
So.
I have heard that a time or two.
I think farming should be the first oldest profession, right? Like
baby farming, maybe.
No, like making food so you don't die.
Oh, well.
Like that should be the oldest profession.
I'm going to tell you right now. I remember a statistic that I heard back in the day that the athletic cup was invented like 70 years before the helmet was. So I don't know if like...
Yeah, we protect our
logical
boys
thinking is what,
Yeah.
Also... I'm going to educate you on something.
Okay.
Did you know that prostitution is actually not the preferred term anymore?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of seen as like a derogatory term. Okay. And so they always call it like sex work.
Okay.
Instead of like prostitution.
I think I had heard that.
Yeah. I've heard it on a few podcasts and like people that I trust on podcasts, so I'm going to go with them. But yeah, okay. I think it's like because that term was given by like authorities as like a derogatory, like you're a prostitute,
I mean, I still think it's a step up from whore.
Well, that's fair. That's fair.
Went biblical on you.
Yeah. So,
theme of the episode.
Speaking of biblical whores, there's a TikTok going around where there's like a woman protesting, and it's a sign. She has this sign that said, "Sluts should be stoned," and so many funny people are like, "What if I used to be a slut? Can I still get stoned?" Like, right. Stoned as in.
She meant the biblical stone, and everyone's like, "Let's smoke weed.
Let's get high."
Yeah.
Yeah. Super funny. Every time I come across those, I laugh. But I laugh at a lot. Apparently, I have terrible humor because what was that thing you showed me? The bass and the bass?
Yes.
My sense of humor is not super evolved, apparently. Because I laughed at something that's like, if you're a dumbass, you laugh at this. And I laughed at it.
Pretty hard. You laughed pretty hard
at
it.
It was funny.
Instantly laughing pretty hard. Yes.
Yeah. I'm just simple. I'm real special, as my grandma says.
Yeah. You are special. I love you.
I love you too. Anyway, so back on to...
Yeah, that was a big tangent there.
Always. Yeah. So for today's topic, we are going to be talking about the true story behind the book that inspired a very well-known horror classic.
Okay. Nightmare on Elm Street?
Not Nightmare on Elm Street.
Friday the 13th.
Although Nightmare on Elm Street actually... So I remember reading somewhere or listening or hearing somewhere that... The idea came to Tim... I think is it Tim Burton that directs Nightmare on Elm Street?
Is it Wes Craven?
Oh, Wes Craven.
I feel like it's Wes
You're
Craven.
right. Yes, good for you. Wes Craven actually...
10 points.
10 points to Gryffindor. That book was actually... Or the movie was based on a newspaper article he had read where, like, teens were dying in their sleep. Like, instead of SIDS, it was, like...
Yeah.
SADS, like sudden adult death, whatever.
Okay.
So yeah, that one technically, he was inspired to write the movie or direct the movie or whatever. I think he wrote it, but
yeah,
based on an article that he read. But aside, that's not what we're talking about tonight.
Okay. Okay.
So
what?
So
What movie? Or do we want to go down all my guesses for all the horror movies I know, and that'll just be the whole episode?
Yeah, nope. So we are going to be talking about the case that inspired the book that was then eventually turned into a movie, The Exorcist.
Oh, I didn't know it was a book.
Yep.
I think I knew it was loosely based on a real story. I think.
See, that's funny because I knew that it was a book, but I didn't think that it was actually based on anything true.
Okay, so you thought it was a fictional book.
I thought it was a fictional
based on a
book that
fictional
they
book.
turned into a movie. You know, like Twilight or Harry Potter. Although Harry Potter might be real. Just saying.
Yeah.
I want it to be.
What did I see? I saw a theory that it's like we all didn't get letters
Yep.
because like Hogwarts was like Voldemort came to power in like the 90s or something.
And because we're probably Muggle born,
Yeah.
or we didn't get our letters. It's like
Yeah.
from 82 to something, you didn't get your letter.
I don't know. My parents might be wizards.
Oh, really?
Just throwing it out there.
I think you need to elaborate on why you're thinking your parents might be wizards.
I think my parents are very special.
Well, they are, but all
Yeah.
parents are, aren't they? Well, not all parents. Most
Yeah.
parents are.
Yeah.
So yeah, the movie was first a book, and it was written by William Peter Blatty, and it was published in 1971. And then the movie came out in 73. So they
Okay.
read this book and they're like, hell yeah, literally, let's do it.
Yeah. I don't know if they did that much back in the day. Like a lot of movies now are based on books, comics, you know what I mean? Like media that's already made.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or
I know there's a
remaking.
number of movies made on books like throughout the time, but yeah, I guess I didn't. You know, back in the 70s, I don't know how much was.
That's a good. I would be curious as to what the statistics are on that.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, what? Wizard of Oz is based on a book. That's from the 30s, right? I mean, To Kill a Mockingbird was a movie. Pretty popular movie.
Gone with the Wind.
Gone with the Wind.
You know
yeah.
that I learned that was a book first from Roseanne, the TV show.
Roseanne, the TV show? Okay.
There's like an episode where they're talking, because Roseanne wants to be a writer, and they're talking about, you know, all the great movies started as books, and Gone with the Wind, and Roseanne's like, Gone with the Wind was a book? It was pretty funny.
And it was.
And it stuck with me. Like, I've
Yep.
always remembered that now.
The Exorcist was a book?
It was a book?
Promo. Cut it.
I just want to say, before I get any further into this, that movie scared the ever-loving shit out of me.
Oh.
I know some people are like, oh, it's not that scary, like, you know. And I watched it as an adult. Like, I watched it when I was, like, 18 in, like, 2004.
Yeah, it doesn't really have jump scares, right? It's not
It
like what we
doesn't.
think about, like, scary movies nowadays where it's like, you know, the classic jump scare, but it's like, it's one of those, like, it's creepy.
It is.
Just, like,
And because we
around.
both grew up with, like, religious backgrounds,
Yep.
I feel like it resonates more, okay? My great-grandma apparently was a missionary, and I remember being, like, growing up and hearing stories about all the things that she did and, like,
Yeah.
things that she saw, and I was always terrified of demons, which I think everybody should have a healthy fear. Whether or not you believe in it, like, you don't want any of that,
Yeah.
you know, coming around.
Well, that was the other thing with it, right? Like, the Exorcist people that, you know, freaked out by it. Yeah, because it's like, we tend to believe in spiritual stuff, like religious, you know, it's like, it's totally in my background, right? Like,
Right.
angels and demons, you know, there's
Well, and when
a
that
reason
came out,
it freaks out a lot of people, I think.
when that came out too in like the 70s, like that is right before the satanic panic started. And like I think maybe people could argue like that maybe helped kick it off. I don't know if that's
yeah.
true or not, but you know, 70s people are still largely like going to church. Like the reactions to that movie, I watched one of the sources for the show was Shock Doc's The Exorcism of Roland Doe on Amazon. And they had interviews, like they showed old interviews of people that had watched the movie.
Yeah.
And they were like, I passed out after like half an hour, or it was terrifying. Like people were shaking in these interviews. They're like, I don't think they should be showing this.
Yeah.
All kinds of crazy stuff. And it was like banned in a few countries until like in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am trying to remember, in the end, right? It's been a long time since I watched it. Let's just be honest.
I have not watched it since I was 18. I have watched it once, and I was terrified, and I have not watched it since. Okay. And I feel like I blocked it out.
So, yeah, so I feel like I have a problem with, like, I blur it with, like, other... There's, like, I can't remember the name of it. It's a Denzel Washington, I think, Fallen,
where it jumps.
Yeah. And
that's
it's
a good
like,
movie.
and it's supposed to be a demon, and it jumps from people to people. And so, like, at the end of The Exorcist, he jumps out the window. Mm-hmm. Like, I think the implication is he's taken the demon into himself. The
priest?
Yeah, the priest. I mean, there's two priests, right? There's two priests.
There's actually multiple priests that were involved in the real thing. But
well, yeah, I'm talking about the movie.
Yes, in the movie.
Yeah, in the movie, there's the two priests. And at the end, the one guy... I think the implication was he takes the demon into himself and then he jumps out the window thinking it would, like, if he died, the demon died. But then isn't at the very end, like, doesn't somebody walk up and he's, like, still barely hanging to life and then it, like, cuts to black and the implication is, like, the demon can jump to this other person? Or again, am I blurring it maybe with Fallen?
Could not tell you. I refuse to watch it again.
Okay.
And so I couldn't tell you if that's what happened at the end of that movie because I swear to God, it traumatized me and I blocked it out.
Yeah.
And I watch a lot of horror movies. Like, there are very few horror movies that actually scare me.
Yeah.
But because of the religious aspect of that one, fucking terrified me.
Yeah.
Like, I was afraid to go to the bathroom by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. It didn't terrify me.
Oh, really?
It didn't. Like, I watched it, I was like, okay, you know. Like,
oh, man.
Jump scares get me, you know.
True.
And I usually get, like, really into movies, you know.
Do. That's why you don't like horror movies, because you have you have a very vivid imagination when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, so when I watch a movie, like, I'm in the movie, you know. And, like, I don't think I reacted strongly to it. I don't think I had any bad dreams after it.
Maybe it's because I wasn't living my best life at that time when I watched it. So I was like, oh, I can't go to hell. Like, I can't deal with this shit for eternity. Like,
a little extra.
I better get right.
Yeah. I was probably at the time still maybe even doing, like, daily devotional Bible reading and stuff. Yeah. So it's like, it's like...
You're like, I'm safe.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, ain't no demon want to fight me.
I'll beat your ass.
Yeah.
I'll beat your ass, Chip.
In the name of Jesus, I'll beat your ass, Chip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways.
What about, so you said the movie was banned in a bunch of countries.
Like the UK, I want to say, is one of them that they banned it.
Yeah, so I have a specific question.
Okay.
Was some of that because, wasn't, like, the actress playing the demon-possessed girl, like, isn't there stuff like she pee? I don't know. There's, like, things she does in the movies that I wonder if, like, showing a young girl doing those acts was, like, what freaked people out. Like, if I remember right, like, she, at one point, doesn't she, like, she starts, like, trying to get the priest to, like, have sex with her and, like, says, like, really filthy stuff. Like, I wonder if that wasn't, like, a big cause. Like, you probably got the church, like, trying to push it down, one.
Yeah.
And when I say church, I mean the Catholic Church, let's just be clear.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, I wonder if it wasn't because of, like, you know, at that time, I don't know how much, you know what I mean? Like...
So, I think because of the reactions, I honestly don't know why it was banned. There's a lot of, like, very controversial stuff in there, even for today, like, you know.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, back then, I'm trying to think. There was, like, that.
It was more
Roman Polanski,
time.
like, Lola movie. You know what I mean? And I think there's, like,
Roman Polanski should be banned.
Oh yeah, totally. But that's what I guess what I'm saying is like there were movies that were like exploiting like young women, whereas nowadays I don't think you get away with that. Like, you know what I mean?
Thank God.
Yeah, you would have to. It would all be like female directed, you know, the actors would have to be like, I felt very safe, you know what I mean? Like,
because even in the last like 10 years, there's people that have come forward for working on certain movies that are like, I felt awful about it. Like, I did not feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I seem to remember that the actress who played the young girl in
Linda Blair.
Yeah, Linda Blair. Like, I seem to remember she got into drugs. I thought I don't know. I seem to remember like later in life not being so or like that movie like was like attached to her or like she was attached to that movie.
Well, she was in some of the sequels too.
Okay.
But again, I didn't go too much into the actual
movie.
Exorcist movie.
Yeah.
Like you only said, because
you didn't want to watch it.
Well, yeah, I'm not watching it again ever. But also because I wanted to focus on like how that movie came to be.
Yeah, that's the part that maybe our listeners aren't aware of. You know?
Yeah.
Like I didn't know it was a book.
So Blatty said that the inspiration for the book came from an article he read in the Washington Post about a 14-year-old Roland Doe, not his real name obviously, who went through a series of exorcisms in 1949.
So it's from the 40s.
Yeah, this was back in 1949. So the book was adapted into the classic horror movie The Exorcist, but before we go into Roland's story, I want to actually talk a little bit about exorcisms because there might be a lot of people that don't know. So, Adam,
Okay.
what comes to your mind when you think of an exorcism or demonic possession?
I think a lot of it comes from the
movie.
From the movie, you know what I mean? I'm thinking it's a priest reciting words, little sprinkling of holy water. Mm-hmm. You know, they just had in the Sandman. They had that exorcism with Joanna Constantine. They had that scene where they introduce her.
Yeah.
Where she like exorcises the demon. You know.
Oh yeah.
So right. Yeah. So in my mind, I associate like priest or somebody reading like priestly words, mm-hmm. and then it's sprinkling of holy water type of a thing. Like what you're really invoking is you're invoking right like
the power of Christ.
The power of Christ. Yeah, because it's straight up biblical.
Because it compels you.
No, not because it compels me. I'm just yeah. I mean, the power of Christ is very compelling.
That is the one thing I remember from that movie.
Yeah.
And then the spoof of it in Scary Movie 2.
In Scary Movie 2. Does it, Jay? Does it compel me?
Guess what? It's not that compelling.
Wait, This Is the End.
This is the end.
That's not Scary Movie 2. This is the end. Who's the actor who gets it's the guy from Wolf of Wall Street and Superbad.
Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill's the one that gets possessed, right?
Yeah, because he gets violated by a demon.
Yeah, This Is the End is a really raunchy movie.
Really raunchy, but super funny.
Pretty funny if you can stand the humor. Yes.
Yep.
So I also think biblical, right? You know,
mm-hmm.
I got the church background. So you have Jesus driving out demons, and then he tells his followers to get that they can do it. Yeah, he sends them out and he's like, go out and do works, like you have the power, you know. And then like I feel like there's even like the reason they say the power of Christ compels them because there's like if I remember right, there's a part in the Bible where like they meet a demon that's like, I've heard of Jesus, I've heard of this, I haven't heard of you, you know? And, like, it's like, so it's like the idea that, like, followers don't have the power of Christ.
I've come to you on behalf of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Right, yeah, it's like, you know.
And I'm not trying to be disrespectful towards religion at all. I mean, I do make a few comments about the Catholic Church, but.
Yeah, we're going to make jokes. On. Yeah, I mean.
The Catholic Church makes it very easy to laugh at their.
Well, a lot of churches. I guess what I was picking up there was a little Mormon. Like, we invite you to. Would you like, hey, demon, would you like to talk about? Yeah, would you have a moment?
Yeah, that's to talk about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
That's what I was picking up. That's what I was picking up from that. I wasn't picking up Catholic Church. I was picking up Mormon Church, Latter-day Saints. You know?
Fair.
So, but yeah, it's So that's the other thing, right? I've heard stories of like exorcisms are like forceful. You know, you're not inviting the demon to leave. You're
straight up telling it.
Yeah.
Hit the dirt.
Yeah.
Hit the bricks, kid.
Yep.
Okay. So according to the Oxford Dictionary, an exorcism is the expulsion or attempted expulsion of a supposed evil spirit from a person or a place. I know when I think of exorcism, I think of the Catholic Church, but there are actually several religions that believe in demonic possession and the uses of an exorcism, which I didn't know that. So Lutherans, LDS, Judaism, Christianity, and Hinduism are just a few that believe in the practice of calling upon a higher power to cast out a demon or evil spirit.
Yeah. Can I just say that maybe a lot of people put Lutherans and Catholics in Christianity? Just
Really?
You said Christianity as if it's like a separate. I mean, so let's just we get this out of the way. Christianity has so many sects, right? Sects. SECTS.
I feel like you saw it in my face.
I did. You're like, say what? I mean, I always thought they were a little repressive about that stuff.
Christianity has a lot of sex.
Yeah. Lutheran and Catholics are like the two big ones, because really, like, a lot of people think Catholic Church is the main church started by, like, Peter.
Uh-huh.
You know, the disciple and apostle Peter.
Yeah.
And then, like, it wasn't until Martin Luther came along, they had the Reformation, and he's like, the church is falling away, we're going to do this, you know, like he posted, really, it's like his
I'm just
thesis
like
or
sitting
something.
Here watching, like, you know so much.
Yeah, I mean, I've been.
Yeah.
I like church history stuff. You
Yeah.
know, I was a chaplain assistant in the Army. You know,
Yeah.
so we learned some of that. You know, but yeah, so it's like, I guess what I'm saying is there's a lot of it. I'll tell you straight up. So I grew up Baptist. This is like Baptist General Conference, not Southern. That's what I always throw. That's what I used to always throw out, because they're a little different down there, and they're a little more notorious. I don't know.
Notorious?
Notorious? Yeah, I think that's the way to say it. Notorious. They're a little more notorious for their, like, conferences and, like, banning things and, like, their big votes and stuff. Anyway.
Yeah.
Midwest Baptist church camp. We had a guy one year. He was like, a lot of people liked his speaking and everything. Like, he was like, but he, over the week, like, he would give, like, sermons, like, every day type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the times he talked about how, like, he's met demons. He's been in, you know, he, like, I guess, kind of like performed exorcisms. But yeah, it was like, yeah, it was very, very interesting stuff. Like, you know, he was like, him as a pastor, he was like, you know, would like bring in, like, help house, like, troubled teen, you know, stuff like that. And yeah, he said, like, yeah, one time, like, this guy was like, basically all he could describe it as was like demon possessed or whatever.
A lot of the times, something like that isn't necessarily a demonic possession. It's
I was gonna ask
a
you
mental
about that.
illness.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
I feel like nowadays you don't hear about these stories as much. Like, you know, I mean, there's still people with issues.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess, like, in my mind, you don't hear so much about, like, oh, yeah, that was a demonic possession. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that actually is a great segue into my next point. So there is actually a guide that Catholics use to basically walk them through the steps of exorcism.
Okay.
It was written in 1614, and 1999 was the first major update to the rules regarding exorcisms, which also included making sure that it isn't like a mental illness, or it actually brings in that type of information. But because before, you know, when this was written in 1614, I don't think they accounted for mental illness. Like, you got demons, let's drain your blood, do some cocaine about it, like, let's get you fixed up. But they actually did update it to reflect mental illness, you know, ruling out all other, from what I understand, they actually want, you know, priests have to, like, rule out mental illness as an option before they can perform the exorcisms.
Well, yeah, I mean, in my mind, if they jump straight to exorcism and it is a mental illness, like, that person is going to think, like, oh my God, you know what I mean? It's
Right.
gonna convince them of things that might not be true. And it's like,
So there was actually a priest on that Shock Docs show that I watched, and he talks about how it's super important that you make sure that it isn't mental illness, because if that's the case and you go straight to exorcism, you're actually doing more harm than good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they do recognize that.
It's a little weird to me that, like, mental health is in my mind, a recent development.
Yeah.
In the history of the world, right? Like,
Yep.
we're talking about, so this exorcism thing, the movie came out in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
The case is from the 49.
49.
So
mm-hmm.
late 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about the Catholic Church didn't update the guidelines of the rules till the 90s.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I'm trying to think, there was like the movie about the gal with the multiple personalities.
Sybil?
Yeah, I was going to say a Sybil.
I think Sybil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that was like late 70s, 80s, I want to say, as well, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I mean, I don't know if like psychiatry is like a newer profession, like only since like...
I think just like everything else that's advanced, I actually will talk about it a little bit, but
Yeah.
psychiatry was available back in the 50s. You know, they updated their book that they use, their little instruction manual. Not a little instruction manual, but... and there are actually two different types of exorcisms, a minor and a major. Back to talking about the exorcisms.
Yeah.
From what I've read, a minor exorcism is part of the baptismal process. So it is like a routine process.
Okay.
From what I saw. So a major exorcism includes rites that cast out demons, and there are steps that are required in order for permission to be granted to perform an exorcism.
Okay.
Yeah. So while each diocese may differ, generally a formal request must be made to a priest who will then meet with the afflicted individual and pray over them.
Yeah.
Is
that for either, or is that major only?
That's major.
Okay.
I think baptisms, like, a lot of the times it's babies and stuff, so it's not like they're gonna... I mean, I know
that's what I mean by,
so right now we're talking about the major,
part of it. Okay.
Major exorcism.
Okay. Sorry. I probably could have not asked that question. We could,
okay.
cut it and
I can cut it. The priest will also delve into the individual's history and give guidance. If the priest deems it necessary, he can escalate to a team that will review his findings and make a decision on whether or not the situation needs to be escalated or any additional actions need to be taken. Yeah. That's just a broad overview of getting a Catholic exorcism.
Yeah, it's not your local priest is just going to do it. That's kind of how I've always understood it.
Yeah.
Is like, it's almost like a whole like investigation, like they build these cases, like they document things, and then if you do perform it, I think kind of like the movie, they bring in a specialist, like is how I've always slightly understood. So it makes sense that they bring in a team to help like corroborate things, you know.
Yeah. And again, now they're, evaluating that it's not a mental illness that's causing these symptoms. Yeah.
So question, when you said this is a series of exorcisms,
yes.
Do they view the investigation process as a series of exorcisms, or are you saying like this guy met with multiple teams over multiple years?
It was multiple months.
Multiple months, okay.
Of performing the rites.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll get into that, though.
Okay. I'm very interested. I want to know now.
So before I start, though, I want to give the caveat that there are quite a few differing versions of the actual details. And since it happened in 1949 and was made into a book that took several creative liberties.
As they do.
As they do. So please know that I tried to use the most commonly reported information, but there are a lot of differing stories, as to what actually happened. But here I tried to give you guys the generally accepted version of what happened.
Okay.
So
we're not claiming expertise on this. We're not.
No, not.
We're not claiming that any one thing is really the true.
No.
Like you say, we're just trying to give the most common information.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So our story starts with 13-year-old Roland Doe, obviously a pseudonym, also sometimes referred to as Robbie Mannheim. Those fake names were given to protect his real identity because he was, a 13-year-old kid.
Okay.
I've also seen some articles that report to know his true identity, but I don't feel like it's anybody's business. I mean, if you really want to know who he is, it's a name on a page. You can look it up yourself. So
I do wonder if it's like Roland and Robbie. Like, was he an R name,
he was.
or is it like a?
From what they say, they found out who the real person was. Yes, he was an R name, but it wasn't either one of those. So just for ease of listening, I'm going to refer to him as Roland for the podcast. Most sources I found say that Roland was born on June 1st, 1935. While there isn't a ton of information about his early life, there were several websites that reported Roland's family was of German descent and they were practicing Lutherans. Although I did see a site mention Roland's family was actually allowing him to figure out his faith as an individual, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Where's the location at? Did I miss that? Sorry.
Nope, I'm getting right to it.
Okay, sorry.
So, Roland was an only child, and his parents lived in Cottage City or Mount Rainier, Maryland. I've seen both. And by all appearances, were a normal middle-class family. Roland was described as quiet but intelligent. I wasn't able to find much on his parents since the majority of the reports are centered around him. Now, in 1949... 13-year-old Roland lost his Aunt Harriet, sometimes also referred to as Tilly. She was a spiritualist with whom Roland was very close with. She taught Roland how to use a Ouija board. I saw some places report that the creepy stuff we're going to be talking about in a minute actually started while his aunt was still alive. But again, hard to verify, since a lot of this is actually shrouded in secrecy, which we will talk about a little bit later, but they really wanted to keep this quiet.
Okay.
The Catholic Church wanted to keep it quiet.
The stuff about the aunt?
No, about the whole thing.
Just the whole thing?
The whole shebang.
Okay. It's just funny because apparently he's Lutheran.
Yeah. Well.
Okay.
Yep. So, and I wasn't able to verify how she died. I just know that it was very unexpected and sudden.
Okay.
So, either way, it was
trauma.
Super... Roland was very close to her, and it really hit him hard, and he was very upset about it.
Yeah. I also say, man, those teenage years, the hormones, like, seriously,
yep.
like...
Which can also... There are some things about that as well, like, that tie into this case, potentially.
Okay.
So, that's where the notoriety of this case actually starts. In early 1949... strange occurrences started in the Doe household. Many sources report that the activity started after Roland repeatedly used the Ouija board in an attempt to contact his recently deceased aunt. But again, I've also seen that it started before that, so who knows?
Yeah. People really don't like Ouija boards, by the way.
I don't. I don't fucks with Ouija boards. I will not touch one. I will never play one.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are like, it's not that,
I feel like they're marketed as like a kid, like...
Yeah.
Like, slumber party, freak each other out thing, and then like, and then there's people who are like, oh no, you're contacting spirits and like inviting things.
I think a lot of it, as with anything in life, is all about intent, right? Like what you're intending to do with it.
Yeah.
I don't ever intend to use one, so I'm not going to worry about it because growing up religious, I was always told, don't you fucking touch a Ouija board, you know? So I'm just going to stick with it. Why risk it?
Yeah. Why play your records backwards?
Yeah. Like Chicago. So, as knocking and scratching in the walls, which his parents actually thought it was like a rodent. So they called in an exterminator to check, but there was nothing.
Yeah, if you're hearing stuff in the walls, you're going to think it's a rodent. Like, that's your natural, like, 99% of the time, you have a rodent or a bird or you know what I mean? Like something.
If you hear scratching on the wall and your first thought is, oh, damn it, demon, I know it.
Right.
I'm going to say that your issue is not one of the supernatural variety. Along with the scratching, which had increased to other areas of the home, there were unexplained water leaks, furniture seemingly being moved on its own, and objects disappearing or moving on their own. Most, if not all, of the activities seemed to be centered around Roland. They also described hearing what sounded like marching towards and in Roland's room.
Marching?
Marching, like troops marching.
Like more than just one person stomping around?
Yes. His
How
bed,
does that tie in with demonic
legions of demons.
legions of
I
demons?
guess, I don't know.
Like,
I'm not going
I
to
always
find
thought it was
out.
good Christian soldiers marching off to war. Like, isn't
I-
that's like a song? That's like
It could be, but I don't
know.
think that was the case with this one.
little song about the Crusades
Yeah.
thrown in, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. That one strikes me really odd.
It is odd. The whole thing is odd. Like all of these weird. Some of them you can explain, but some of them are like, well, that's random.
Yeah. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
With trying to introduce a rational. It's like, why does the furniture move? Is it like, something's just too big, can't go around the chair, has to move the chair? You know what I mean? Like,
I think a lot of it is actually a scare tactic, right? Like, you want people on edge, you want them afraid. That's
You're freaking them out.
You're freaking them out, basically. Like, you're showing yourself, you're letting them know that you're there. Like, otherwise, if they're silently attacking somebody, nobody's gonna know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so are they saying Roland was moving the stuff around and acting like, nah, I didn't touch that?
No, so they said that they actually saw things move on their own volition.
So the parents.
Yes.
So the parents are seeing things.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. His bed would also shake violently, seemingly on its own. He would have outbursts and low guttural voices that didn't seem to belong to a young man. Typical signs of a haunting or possession.
Yeah. You ever get that? I feel like the low guttural stuff, like, I feel like little kids do that sometimes, right? Like,
yeah.
It freaks people out, too,
I have a friend that has a story about that.
Yeah.
About a little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing and it's like, I have to believe they pick it up from somewhere, like little kids. Like, I have to believe that it's not.
Yeah.
But
I also think, like, you hear stuff, and sometimes there really isn't a logical explanation. I'm on the fence on this one. I'll just say it right now.
Yeah.
I'm on the fence. There's some things that make me think maybe this was a genuine possession, but there's also some things that make me think, maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, he's 13.
Yeah.
So in my mind, he's past that age of, like, little kids just being little kids, weird,
Yeah.
Like the little kids saying, like, oh, the people who live in the walls don't like us anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, little kids say weird,
it's at that
random
point, you just
stuff,
gotta throw
right?
the kid out and get a new one.
Right.
Start over.
Drop it off at the pound.
Yeah. While all of this is happening, Roland's mom and dad also noticed some physical and behavioral changes. They noticed unexplained bruising, scratching, etc. that were showing up all over Roland's body with no logical explanation.
Okay.
He also started exhibiting some troubling behaviors. He was often described as quiet and mild-mannered, although the show Shock Docs described him as troubled and somewhat mischievous. But I also saw that was because he was extremely intelligent. So they said he wasn't being challenged, but during this time, he would have violent outbursts, become aggressive, throw tantrums, seemingly without any provocation.
Okay.
So there was also mention of Rowling having vivid nightmares. Some sources also said that he started showing aversion to religious and holy items, and also defecating on the walls of the home.
Ah, poop smears. No.
Poop smears.
You definitely got to take the kid to the pound if they're smearing poop on the wall.
There were also reports that 3 scratches appeared on Roland multiple times throughout this ordeal. The number 3 is significant because many believe it is the Holy Trinity, and if something like that shows up on you, it's a demon or an evil spirit mocking the Holy Trinity.
Okay.
The Holy Trinity is a reference to God in 3 forms: the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
So that's the Holy Trinity.
Yeah. You have 3, 7. 7 is the number that comes up in the Bible all the time. It's considered like a holy number.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew 3. I knew about the Holy Trinity and stuff.
Yeah.
But obviously, Roland is going through it, and his family is going through it at this point.
Yeah.
So, to the credit of his parents, they explored other avenues to try to find a reason for the sudden change in Roland. Now remember, this is 1949, and aside from taking him to a medical doctor, they also had him checked out by a psychologist and a psychiatrist, which feels pretty progressive to me for the time.
Yeah.
And the views that were held on mental health at that time.
Well, I mean, it sounded like the parents were already a little fairly progressive, like the whole, like, letting him figure out his stuff, like, at 13, like, or given more time to develop type of a thing. Like,
Right.
I feel like kids in the 40s dropping out to, like, farm. So this is, like, a common thing, I think, in, like, South Dakota, growing up in South Dakota. Like, you might only go to high school till 16, and then it's time to help out the family farm, and you're working, you're not getting your diploma, you know what I mean? Like, you're not finishing school, or school might have even only been geared up to, like, 16. So I guess when I...
A 13-year-old in 1949 is not the same as a 13-year-old now.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
Very good point.
I got you, babe.
Yeah, you got me.
We know a lot of the behaviors that Roland displayed can also be symptoms of mental illness. The scatophilia, the seizing up, the outbursts, they can all be a mental health condition.
Yeah.
And trauma can also cause symptoms to appear that
Yeah.
closely resemble signs of possession, like, the sudden, unexpected death of a beloved aunt.
Yeah.
That can trigger some symptoms
Yeah.
to appear.
Yeah. Throwing a little lighthearted, did he go, like, emo? Did he, like,
Where are you?
yeah, like, hair combed forward over the eyes, like, Spider-Man 3, Peter Parker, like, just straight
Evil
up.
Spider-Man.
Yep. Just Bully. I think we call him Bully Maguire is the memes nowadays.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Bully Maguire when Spider-Man's like, the alien symbiotes like making him do bad things or be a dick.
Is that why he turns bad?
Yeah, it's the alien symbiote.
Oh.
Peter Parker isn't a bad guy on his own. Yeah.
He dealt with a lot of shit. Maybe he just got tired of it.
That's fair.
I obviously have not watched all those.
Yeah.
Or I don't remember them.
Yeah. So you got the age is ripe with hormones. You have a trauma. It's, I mean, all the ingredients feel there.
Yep.
Feel like,
Could go either way at this point for me, right?
Well, yeah, and that's why I think, like, the weird, like, the parents seeing things move stands out, right? Like, how are you explaining that away?
Exactly.
Like, you can... The kid, Mark showing up, stuff like that, right?
You
like, I
can
mean, that
scratch
can be
yourself,
self-harm. Yeah, like, all that stuff, so it's the other stuff that I think really the parents would be like, what's going on, We got a little David Copperfield on our hands,
That's some David Copperfield shit.
Yeah, little Nicky.
Okay, so when all the other avenues failed, and again, I have to give them so much credit for actually doing more than just like, okay, nothing wrong with him physically, like, it's a demon,
Yeah.
Roland's mother actually started to believe that the house was haunted.
Oh,
and
okay.
if you believe in such things, I do, these occurrences actually sound a lot like a poltergeist.
Yeah.
Just a quick bit about poltergeist. The term is a German word. Haha, we're German, we know.
Yeah.
That literally translate to noisy ghost. Polter
ghost.
is noisy, Geist is ghost.
Yeah.
So it's considered a noisy ghost. So I think that's actually a perfect place to stop. We've gone over all of the things that lead to what our next episode will be going over, which is a series of exorcisms that this 13-year-old boy from Maryland endured over several months. So please make sure you tune in on Monday. We'll be releasing part 2 of the exorcism of Roland Doe. We also really want to thank everybody for listening last week and tuning in. We appreciate all of the downloads, the likes, subscribe, shares. All of that stuff means so much to us. When we first started this, neither one of us really had an idea of how much work it actually is to do a podcast, especially because we are recording, editing, producing all of it ourselves. So as much, it is a lot of work, but it's also a ton of fun. So we really appreciate the positive feedback. And with that, please make sure that you like, follow, subscribe on whatever platform you're using. Give us a 5-star review, a 5-star rating. All of it helps bring more visibility to new podcasts. And don't forget to check out our socials. We have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Creepy Cascadia Pod. We also have a TikTok, Creepy Cascadia Podcast, along with our website, creepycascadiapod.com. There you can check out information about our episodes. We have information about us. If you're curious like me and want to see a face to the name, which I always do when I listen to a new podcast, feel free to go on there and check it out. If you have questions, compliments, concerns, just want to chat, you can reach out to us on our socials, or you can shoot us an email. The address is admin@creepycascadiapod.com. We would love to hear from you guys. So thank you again for listening. Make sure you tune in on Monday, and we will see you next week.